Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my talk. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina. I'll share a little bit more about me in a second. But first, I want to actually say thank you to Leah. She has created this amazing event for us to be able to share all this beautiful information. Hey, Sarah. To be able to share all this beautiful information with you, to be able to help all of us actually move forward in creating our big dreams and our big goals and our desires and all of the things that we really want to bring into 2020, but also the rest of our lives. So I want to say a big thank you to her for creating this space for us to be able to share and talk about this, what helps us and what works for us and helps to bring us into alignment. So good morning. My name is Christina Mathewson. I am many, many things, one of which is a mother of 7 children. I'm also an owner of 2 businesses, and I'm a naturopath, a GAPS practitioner, which is gut and psychology syndrome, and an empowerment coach. So I'm a whole bunch of different things all under one umbrella. And today I really wanted to come and talk to you about moving from survivor to thriver. Now, this for me is something that has really personal connotations. I had personal experiences of being a survivor. I know one of the labels, I just shared a whole bunch of labels there that I have, but one of the labels that I've had for many, many years, probably 6 years now, my daughter's about to turn 7, so it's nearly 7 years, was survivor. And I am and have been and will probably forever be a survivor of a pregnancy condition called placenta prurita. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But hi, Melanie. Hi, Maria. Hi, everybody else who's jumping on. Say hi. Let me know you're here. And please feel free to ask questions as we go through. Like, be fans of the thumbs up, the loves, and whatever else you're feeling as you're listening to me share this morning, so that I know that you're coming along the journey with me. So when we first started, hey, Frank, when Leah first talked to me about this event, she gave me a whole bunch of questions, ones of which I could actually start to look at and think about, what do I want to share and what do I want to talk about? And as I was going through them, the one that really jumped out at me was, tell us what made you decide your purpose, goals, dreams, and visions. And so I'm going to share that exact moment for you. Yes, 7 kids. So for me, it all started way back in 2012 when I was pregnant with, it was my 7th pregnancy. And I remember the experience waking up on the 23rd of November. That was my daughter's birthday. And we have a bit of a birthday tradition in our family to make pancakes for breakfast. And so I was like bouncing down the stairs. I had this, beautiful pregnancy glow. I had this, it was, I was 7.5 weeks pregnant. So I was still kind of, some people knew, some people didn't know. So it was still that little bit of a secret of this secret person growing inside of me. And for those of you who have experienced some of that magic of pregnancy, it was just like, oh my gosh, I've got a secret and nobody else knows. And anyway, so I started to prep my breakfast, the pancakes for the family. And as I was doing that, I felt this gush. And I was like, that's a bit weird. Like, I've never had that before. Maybe I peed myself and I didn't really know it, but pregnant women sometimes pee themselves, and maybe I just peed myself and I didn't know it. So I went to the bathroom, and it was when I was in the bathroom that I discovered that I hadn't actually peed myself, that I was actually bleeding. And there was this audible sigh from me that my husband in the other room heard, and he just went, what's going on? And I had to share to him that I think I was losing the baby. And so as I stood up, actually the baby came out. And so there's this moment with me and my husband sort of in the bathroom holding our baby and looking at each other, and just this, there was no words to describe that moment. And so we had this moment together. Then he went and buried our baby, and I knew it was my daughter's birthday, and I didn't want to ruin her whole day by being at the hospital for the whole day. So we did something we didn't normally do, and we went to McDonald's for breakfast. We took all the kids to McDonald's for breakfast before we went off to the hospital, because I knew at the bare minimum they'd need to give me Anti-D. And so we went into the hospital. After about an hour-long wait, they done bloods. They came back to me and they said, "Are you sure you've lost the baby?" And I'm like, "What do you mean I'm sure I've lost the baby?" "Yes." We held our baby in my hands. Like, yes, we could see the baby. Like, yes. And I was really confused by this whole thing because, they were saying these things like, are you sure? And they're checking me for pregnancy symptoms. And I'm like, what's going on? And they said to me at that point that my blood work was so high for somebody who was pregnant, like it was higher than what it should have been for just a normal pregnancy, let alone somebody who'd just gone through a miscarriage. And so I'm like, so what are you telling me? And they were like, well, we don't know what we're telling you. We need to have an ultrasound. And we can't get you into an ultrasound for probably 4 days. And so that was the longest 4 days ever of going, well, what's going on? I have no idea what's going on here. And finally, that day came around. We had the ultrasound and they said to me, there were 2 babies. You lost one. There's still another one. And so there's a healthy heartbeat there. It's looking good at the moment. Just continue on. So I'm left with this kind of emotion of not knowing what to do with, in that I've lost a baby. I've still got a baby. I don't know what's going to happen with that baby. There's a lot of unknown. And so as the journey of that pregnancy continued on, I had every couple of weeks another bleed. And so I'd have to go back to the hospital because at that point it was the only way we could check that I still had a live baby. And so I went back to the hospital, we'd have another ultrasound. They'd say, yes, you've still got a live baby. They'd send me home. And the other element of this is that we live in a small sort of country town, or we did at that point. And so everyone kind of knows everyone. If you're at the hospital, you're eventually going to run into somebody that you know. So they would sit me with all of the women who had these big giant pregnant bellies who were complaining about, I wish this would hurry up and be over, and that, can they induce me already? And I'm sitting there praying that I've still got a live baby. And then every so often somebody I knew would walk into that room and they'd sit next to me and they'd say things like, oh, you're pregnant again? Like really excited. And I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe I am, but I'm just checking to see if my baby's alive today. And so it was this huge emotional roller coaster throughout this whole pregnancy until around 23 weeks when the bleeding sort of subsided at that point. But at that point, they then diagnosed me with placenta prurita. So my placenta was over the opening of the uterus. So usually your baby's head's there, the placenta's up nice and high, and that's how it's meant to be. But my placenta was first. So if I went into labor, the first thing that was going to come out was my placenta. My baby's lifeline was the first thing that was going to come out. And so the pregnancy continued. I'd heard about this risk of accreta, but my doctors were pretty sure it was so rare that it was never going to happen to me. And so they didn't do all of the investigative checks that they could have done to see if I had that. They just assumed that I had placenta previa, and that at around 37 weeks they'd have to deliver me. Around the 30-week mark, they started to tell me it's not safe to leave your local area anymore. You need to stay within like 15 minutes from the hospital. I'm like, okay, cool. We need to plan for that because I have 6 children at home with me. My husband's off doing his study stuff that he was doing, and we actually picked for him to study that year because of all of the stuff that had come up with his pregnancy, so that he could just drop it and come if he needed to, because we had this awareness that could be like an emergency. I, on the other hand, actually had this secret understanding that I think I was going to die, that I thought this would be the end, and I had started preparing my husband. We'd go on drives and I'd talk to him and I'd say, well, this is how I want you to raise the kids if I don't make it. This is what I want to happen at my funeral. This is how I want this to happen, because I had this real strong sense that I was going to die. And I wanted there not to be any not knowings, because we'd been to other friends' funerals where the partner had said, I don't know what they wanted for this. I don't know how they wanted for this. And so I was like determined, I'm not leaving this earth without you knowing exactly what it is that I want and how I want you to have it. I don't want you to have any doubts about what it is that I want for my children and my family and all that sort of stuff. And so I'd been preparing him along the way, and he'd try and shut me down and tell me to shut up. Oh, stop talking about it. It's not going to happen. That's what he thought. So as the story continues, we get to around 36 weeks and I'm sitting at home. I have all my children with me because we're homeschoolers as well. So I had all my children at home. We'd done our schoolwork for the day. We just had lunch and I sat down to do some crocheting, and gosh, there was that sensation again. I knew what it was this time because I'd felt it before. And I'd quickly jumped up, ran to the bathroom, and blood was pouring out of me as if I was peeing. And my children jumped into action. One of them went next door to get the lady next door because I was home alone. One grabbed the phone so I could call the ambulance. Another grabbed the computer so that I could message my husband via Facebook and my best friend to come and look after my kids. And so I'm on the phone with the ambulance and they're telling me to get off the toilet. And so I do a little dance to get off the toilet and into the bathroom because I didn't want to get blood on the carpet. Like some of the things that you think about in these emergency moments, just goes, who gives a rat's about the carpet, Christina? You're bleeding. But I was worrying about the carpet. So I did this little dance and I got into the bathroom. And then the lady on the phone, she's asking me to sit down. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I haven't washed my floor today. It's really gross. I don't think I can sit on that. And again, she's like, you need to sit on the floor in case you pass out. And I'm like, oh, really? Can I just sit on the bath? Because the bath is clean. And she's like, no, Christina, you have to get on the floor. Can you put a towel down? Oh, of course. So I grab a towel and I put that down on the floor. Kids grab me blankets. Then the lady next door comes. She opens the door for the ambulance guys. They come in. They try and get a vein and get a drip happening, and they're calling ahead to the hospital to tell them that we're coming. And just as they had got me into the ambulance, my husband turned up, but they didn't have enough time to wait for him because we were, of course, in an emergency. So the lady next door brought him to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, contractions started, and I'm like freaking out because I know that if I start giving birth to this baby, she's going to die because she's like the placenta is going to come out first and, you know, she's not going to have oxygen and it's going to be all over. So I'm saying to the ambulance guy, if I start going into labor, I don't care how much this hurts. I just want you to reach in, pull her legs, grab her out because she was in breech at that time. So I'm like, just pull her out. I don't care. And so he turns to the driver and he says, go faster. And so he's telling the driver to go faster and we're rushing really fast. I didn't even know you could get to the hospital that fast, but we got there really quickly. And then just before they took me into the OR, my husband and I had this moment again together where he was saying, goodbye, I'll see you when you get out, all of that sort of stuff. Little did we know that that would be the last time we would see each other for days. So from that moment, they took me into the theatre. They did all the things. They put in all the drips. They, waxed me, everything. And then they put the Doppler on and they were looking for her heartbeat. And they put it on and there's this sigh in the whole room where it's just silent and we can't find her heartbeat. And you could hear everyone's sort of energy lifting and freaking out a little bit. And then I had that quick moment of going, oh, she's not there, she's in breech. And so they moved around and they found her heartbeat. And then there's this audible sigh in the whole room where everybody just breathes this breath of, okay. And then they jump back into getting everything happening. And so they put me out. And that for me was the last thing that I knew really until 7 days later. So during those 7 days, a lot happened. While they delivered her, she came out fine. They gave her, she needed a little bit of resuscitation and then she was fine and she was whisked off to the nursery. I, on the other hand, that was the beginning of the fight for my life. So not only did I have placenta previa, I had placenta precreta. So for those who don't know, placenta precreta is where the placenta actually reaches out a little bit like a cancer and spreads through the organs that are near the uterus. So my placenta had gone through my uterus, into my bladder and into my major blood supply. So it had essentially taken up residence in a big part of my body. But they didn't know that at the time because they hadn't done those extra checks to see what was happening because they assumed it was so rare it was never going to happen. And so in that moment, I'm bleeding profusely and they are trying to stop the bleeding. They give me a hysterectomy and they close me up thinking that's going to be the end of it. Because at that point, there was so much blood, they couldn't actually see where I began and the placenta finished. They were just using their hands to kind of feel their way around. And so they closed me up, they sent me to ICU. In ICU, I continued to bleed out. And so they sent me back to theatre They found a little bit more placenta. They closed me up. They sent me back. I was still bleeding out. They sent me back to theatre. They opened me up, found a little bit more placenta, closed me up and sent me back. They did this 7 times over before they found all of the parts of the placenta that were inside of me. During that time, I'm on life support for the whole time and using donated blood to stay alive. So I wake up on day 7 with my respirator on, down my throat, pumping air into my lungs, tubes in every part of my body, some of which I didn't even know could get tubes, got tubes. And so it was this moment where I woke up and I was really very groggy. I was on a lot of pain medication, a whole bunch of stuff. No one was really talking to me that I thought. Later they told me that they were telling me every half an hour all the things, but I couldn't remember any of it because it kept going, and so I couldn't hold on and retain the information. And so it was during that experience that I was in this moment of complete powerlessness because I couldn't talk. I wasn't even breathing for myself at that point. I was in control of nothing in my life and I couldn't communicate with the outside world. And I had no idea what had happened. I had a brief idea, but not a lot because I'd done a little bit of study and, learnt a little bit about Accreta, but I kept being told that I didn't have it and it was so rare it was never going to happen that I didn't delve into it completely to fully know what was going on. But I had maybe, seems a bit dramatic for a C-section. Anyway, as the pipes came out and the tubes came out and all the other stuff happened, people slowly started to drip feed me and tell me what had happened and, what had happened to my baby and all of that sort of stuff. And they brought her down. We were finally reunited to my knowledge. But I was so weak because I'd needed like 178 people's blood to actually stay alive. And I'd needed like all this medication and all this time on life support and so on. And I just didn't even have the strength to press my own medication thing to get rid of the pain. And so it was a very demoralizing experience in a whole bunch of ways because, of course, I'm an active mother of 6 children. I'm used to doing everything for everyone. And then all of a sudden, I can't do anything for me at all, let alone take care and look after my children and do all those things. But I had survived. And so that was the beginning of my sort of pivotal moment of starting to figure out who I was and what it is that I wanted to do in the world. In a long way. So it took a long time to recover from that. It took me, a good 4 months. It took me 4 weeks to get out of hospital. Then it took me 8 months to be able to build my strength up, to be able to walk around the supermarket on my own without having to have somebody with me, to do the shopping for my family. So it took a long time to actually rebuild my strength and my capacity and do the things that I needed to do. Like it even just took a long time to be able to use my bladder again because I'd had to reconstruct it and do all sorts of things to keep me functioning. And yeah, it was a very terrifying moment, Erica. And so it took a long time in that recovery. But also within that recovery, I've got this baby who's my last baby because I've now had a hysterectomy. So it wasn't by choice. I wanted to have like 12 babies, not 7. And so there's all this grief and there's all this trauma and there's all this pain that I was going through at that point in my life that I often thought about ending my own life. And it was a very dark moment. And I had all these thoughts that would go through my mind about how I could end it so that it looked like it was an accident because I didn't want my children to think that they weren't enough. And so there's this huge weight of darkness in that space. And I called it my time where decision deferred, where I chose things that were the long game of ending my life. So I would choose to eat like this chocolate bar. It's so silly because I think about it now. Every time I put it in my mouth, it would make me smile a little bit. It was the Cadbury's chocolate bar with the little crackling stuff in it. And so I would eat one of those every time I possibly could in order to kind of shove down my pain and as well as, play the long game of getting out of this journey. But it would make me smile in it because it would pop. Anyway, so as that continued on, it was my decision deferred because I think in the back of my mind, I secretly knew that my lioness was about to come out. That at any point, she would be ready to jump and start ripping the crap out of this crap that was going on in my head. And so I was deferring that decision of ending my life, waiting for that lioness to come out. And she eventually did. She came out in a really big way. And when she did come out, she came out roaring in a way that I had not expected, in a way that I had not anticipated. She essentially showed me some of the parts of my life that I'd been letting myself down. So during the time of, sitting around waiting for the lioness to come, I'd look through photos and I'd realize that I was not in any of my photos. Like there was all these photos of my kids and my family and all this sort of stuff, but I had very little photos of me, especially photos that I actually enjoyed being in. Most of them I was like pushing kids in front of me, hiding behind them, trying not to be seen because I didn't like the way that I looked. And I had all those crappy beliefs in my mind about how I should look and how I should be and all of that sort of stuff. But I realized that my children just see me. They don't see all the baggage that I have. They don't see all the mindset crap that I was sifting through and I was seeing and all the jiggly bits that I see. They just see me. And it was in that moment that I realized I was doing myself a disservice. But not only that, I'd been doing my children a disservice as well. So I'd been living a half life. I'd been living a life where I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be, I wasn't expressing myself to the fullest impact. I wasn't sharing my rainbow of colors. I was sharing the beige and I was showing that beige to everyone and hiding my rainbow that was behind all of that because of the shame and the guilt and all of the different layers of crap that we as, women in society sort of put into our minds. And I'd been hiding that and I realized wow, I came so close to losing it in that moment. And then I came so close to giving it up and I'd not even been living it. And so it was this real moment for me where this lioness of me came out firing and shooting and roaring and going, that's it. I've had enough of this. I am so not living my life to the fullest compact or impact anymore. I'm not doing that game anymore. I'm actually going to take life and I'm going to choose to live it. And I'm going to choose to live it on purpose. And so it was this big game changer for me where I went through this moment of darkness. But through the moment of darkness, I finally got to see the light. A light that I'd never fully embraced before. And so that was the pivotal moment of me starting to pursue my dreams and my passions and my goals and create a life that I really wanted to be living, not one that I would watch other people on Instagram living, one that I wanted to be living. And that was my game-changing moment. And so from there, I went back and I started my studies again as a naturopath because I'd previously started those and kind of let it go. But I restarted those, and then as I continued along that journey, I then started to learn about coaching and really understanding this impact between, health and mentality and our brain and all the emotional baggage and starting to understand how all of that worked together as a whole, as opposed to just one element being, it's not just the food, it's not just the mindset, it's the whole package of doing all the things together that creates beautiful health. And as I continued to move forward, I continued to start to see these patterns. I would see it with my clients and I would see it with myself where their health was really a guiding light. It was this place of starting to show us, it was where they were out of alignment in their lives and started to show us where they needed to pull themselves into alignment. So one of my favorite clients that I've worked with for many years, she came to me with chronic fatigue. And as she was talking and I was looking at her iridology and I was seeing all the things, from her health perspective, and they just didn't line up. Her constitution is a really strong constitution, but her sickness is one that's really energy deficient. And it just didn't make sense until I started to go, maybe if I look at this differently, I might see something. And I started to look at our health as our superpower. It's a guiding light per se. It's this way of shining our attention, or bringing our attention to what our body and our soul is screaming out for. And so with her, we started a lot of our coaching stuff, and we started to unpack, what's going on for you. And when I've worked with people with chronic fatigue now for many of my clients, I find that there's a part of themselves where they've been told that they're not okay, and they play a role, and they put on this mask to pretend to be somebody that they're actually not, for a whole bunch of purposes. And when we start to take that mask off, it's like their lioness gets to come out and play, and their lioness starts to call them into their passions and purposes, and they're no longer tolerating the half-life, the shadow life that they've been living, and they're ready to jump into creating the life that they fully love, are passionate about, and can't wait to be living every moment of every day. And they wake up with energy. They wake up with this ability to want to do more in their lives, with the energy to actually hold them to do it. And so that for me, again, was another really strong learning moment of really starting to connect that our health is our superpower. When our health is out of alignment, when our physical body is out of alignment, it's telling us also that there's something in our spiritual and emotional health that's out of alignment too. And when we start to correct all of them, we start to create magic, because that in that space is where you are fully embracing who you are, and fully embracing the things that you're going to tolerate in your life, and the things that you're not going to tolerate in your life. And you start to create dreams and passions, and you start to pursue them with a new vigor and a new passion, because you know that it's more than just a dream. It's actually a calling. It's actually this desire, this destiny that you've been put here for. And that's where this beautiful magic comes along. And I know Frank talked about yesterday that it's not that there isn't hard work in there when you're in the flow. There totally is. There's, really to get into those moments, you have to be ready to embrace the uncomfortable. Like, you have to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's where your growth is, and that's where your movement forward is. It's doing things that you've never done before, embracing things that you've never said before, facing your challenges and realizing that they're actually just challenges. They're there for a growth opportunity. They're there to actually help you be stronger, fitter, braver, all of those sorts of things. And when you're in alignment, though, it is that you want to continue to move forward in that space, as opposed to, this is hard, I'm just giving up. It's when you're in alignment and you're fully pursuing the thing that you're called to be doing in this world. It's not that it's not hard, it's that it is there's a reason why you want to be doing it, and you continue to grow, and you continue to pursue, and you continue to call in people who are going to help you with that as well, because we have this magnetism of, when you're on fire for your life, you actually start to call in other people who are on fire for their own lives as well. And you brush each other up, you spur each other on, you encourage each other, you hold each other when you've fallen down, and you pick each other back up when you need to as well. And so there's this beautiful synergy that happens when you start to decide about how you want your life to go, and what you want in your life, and what you're calling in, and get into alignment with what your destiny is. All of this beautiful stuff comes into play and comes in to reward you as well, along with the hard stuff. Like, the hard stuff is part of the reward when you realize actually it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be, because now you're through it. Any questions, please feel free to dump them. I'm loving seeing the love hearts. So for me, there are many things that have helped me on this journey, one of which is creating a tribe. So I know I can see that there's a couple of other naturopaths, nutritionists on the call at the moment live, and many of them we studied together, and it was a hard slog because our university or our college didn't actually provide us with fantastic support, fantastic knowledge, and we needed a tribe. So for me, wherever I am in my journey, I'm always calling in a tribe. I'm always creating a community. I'm always bringing in the people that I need. Mel, you're mesmerized by me? Good. I'll speak into that subconscious, calling you out. Bringing in a tribe has always been a big part of my success journey. When it was surviving Akrita, it was calling in my Akrita sisters and talking to them and messaging them and sharing all the crap that nobody else could understand, because people would say to me things like, oh, at least you're alive. At least you've got a healthy baby. And I'm like, if you start a sentence with at least, it's not a good sentence because there's pain in there. There's hurt in there. That means something has been left behind. And it's okay for me to feel grief for that. But people don't have a good understanding about how to approach and how to work with somebody who is grieving. We want to brush it under the carpet and we want to just look at the good things, but actually it's in the hard things that we learn so much about ourselves. And it was in that moment that I learned that people just don't know how to respond to grief very well. And it's because they're afraid of it. They're also really uneducated about how to approach somebody who is grieving. Like, we have a culture that's not super good at that. And people would ask me questions like, how are you today? And I'm like, I never know how to answer that question because, like, most of the day I've spent it trying not to kill myself. Now I'm here, but I can't say any of that to you because you don't know how to cope with that, because you've got too much of you going on that you can't hold space for me. And again, that was a learning opportunity where I learned how to hold space for other people in their grief and how to hold space for other people as they're moving through their own learning journey. And all of that gets to be stuff I get to pull into the future and I get to use with my clients and I get to help them with. So Mel saying I wouldn't have lasted without the group. Awesome, because I wouldn't have lasted without that group either. Maria, oh my God, thank you for sharing. Can see the beauty in your sadness. So happy that you are with us. I am so happy I am with us too. Now, there was a time when I wasn't, but now there is, because I can see the purpose and I can see the greater calling and the greater journey that I have within that. And now my next space is to go through and help as many people as I possibly can to be able to actually learn to connect with who they are, embrace who they are, and make a world full of rainbows, because we're all loving who we are, as opposed to what I see right now is a lot of hurting children walking around in adult bodies that go around hurting other people because they haven't healed their own emotional grief and journey, and they haven't embraced who they are, and they're still hiding who they are from most of the world. So Eric is saying, so true about grief. I found that difficult too when my father passed away. Grief is so complex as well. Absolutely. Grief is a really complex thing because, even in grief, like, you can have moments where you think, oh, am I even allowed to laugh? Like, am I doing a disservice to the people that I love by laughing in this moment and in enjoying something or expressing happiness? But at the same time, you have beautiful memories of those people that you want to connect with. I remember being in Nashville. So, I think it was maybe 2014 or 15. I went to America and we went to Nashville because we had a worldwide Akita survivors sort of day. And I connected with a whole bunch of survivors in there. And we went on this tour around Nashville. And oh my God, my dad is the biggest country and Western fan ever. So he would have been tickled pink that I was in Nashville. He would have loved to have been there with me. And there was this moment where we're driving this thing and I went to take a photo of something to send it to him, and realizing he'd passed away. He's not there. I can't share that moment with him anymore. And so there's all these facets of grief, and it never just goes away. There's always little trigger moments that happen, and it's all okay. You're allowed to feel those feelings, and it's almost like an honor to be able to have that moment of remembering your person, remembering the feelings, remembering those things, and celebrating who they were with a little bit of joy, but also remembering them and being sad as well that they are no longer there for you. All of that is okay. You're totally allowed to feel your feelings. And we in our society often get told that we're not allowed to feel our feelings, that we need to kind of tuck that stuff away, like have a cup of concrete, brother or sister, and suck it up and move on. And yes, there's appropriate times to express your emotions and inappropriate times that are not going to serve you super well. But we have to feel those emotions, because emotions are essentially energy in motion. That's what emotions are, energy in motion. And if we block the emotion, we create stagnation, and then we create sickness within our own bodies. And so again, getting back to that superpower of our health, when our health is stagnant, like when we have stuff wrong in regards to our health, then it's usually a combination of environment and the internal environment. So external environment and internal environment. And that internal environment can be any number of things, including emotions that we've shut down. We've blocked the energy of the emotion. And so we need to unpack that. We need to create space to allow those emotions to come through and come out, because they are like a wave. They come and they actually go if we allow the space for that to happen. But we're so used to being shut off and shut up that we don't do that. And that is the exact space where I see many, many women with a thyroid condition, because our throat is the area that we're closing up when we're stifling and we're shutting down emotions. Hey, Steph. When we're shutting down our emotions, we're blocking the energy of the throat. And when we do that, we're creating a block here. And that is the exact space where your thyroid is. And so if you do have a thyroid condition, many times I find women who have a underactive thyroid have not been speaking their truth. And to heal you, we can do all the nutrients, we can do all the supplements, we can do all those things. But to fully get to a place where you're back in alignment and you're back in flow, we have to get you speaking your truth and letting out your voice and allowing you to be heard and doing things that allow you to be heard, and recognize that your voice has value. What you have to say is important. What you think and feel are also of value, and they need to come out of you and stop being blocked. And so for me, that is one of the big things that I pursue now in my life, is teaching as many people as possible to let go of the energy that's blocked by releasing the emotions, feeling who you are, getting to know who you are and the magnificence that is inside of you, because all of you are born with amazing traits, these beautiful traits. And if you're in my courses, you'll know I'll talk about, the 10 traits of playfulness and lovability and spontaneity, and we're risk takers, and we're all of these amazing things. We're warm, but we've learnt along the way to shut those down and suppress them because somebody's told us that it's not okay, because they've learnt to suppress them themselves. So for me, your superpower is your health. Your health will communicate to you, if you listen to it, what needs to move and shift so that you can become in alignment. And sometimes you might need somebody else to help you with that. And I'm totally open for you to message me and we can book in a session to do that. But you can start doing some of this for yourself, because your subconscious knows all the information. And so if you've got a pen and paper and you know that you're out of alignment because of something in your health, start writing it down and start asking yourself, how can I help myself now? What do I need to get better? What's out of alignment? Ask yourself those 3 questions. Allow yourself to see what comes forward. And that can be a great starting place for you to start to reconnect with listening to your body again. Start associating with it again, because we've been very disassociated with our bodies. And listen to what it has to share and say to you, because it has amazing things. It has amazing wisdom. And it really is trillions of cells really cheering you on, wanting you to win, aiming for you to take the gold medal out of whatever it is in your life that you're after, and cheering you on and spurring you on. Just got to listen to them, because they're all there and you're all magic and you can have it. You've just got to start listening to your body, start taking it on, and then put legs on it. You've got to action it. You've got to actually put legs on it. It's no good having a big dream on your wall that you never do anything about. You've got to start actioning it. I think that's it for me today. The quote, one of these questions, I've got the questions in front of me. One of the questions is my favorite quote. And my favorite quote at the moment is, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Start looking at the things that are holding you back, that are suppressing you, that are keeping you stuck, that are fearful things for you, and start embracing challenging those fears. Start embracing moving forward. I'm going to tell you a quick story. So for me, one of the big lessons that I've had to learn on my journey is asking for what I want, because you can't have what you can't ask for. You can't have what you can't language. You can't have what you can't ask for. And so I had to learn the lesson of asking for what I wanted. And I remember being in a cafe, and the challenge that I had been given from my coach at that point was to go into the cafe and ask them to reheat my coffee, which was totally incongruent for me because I like mine cold before I drink it anyway. And so I was having this internal fight. Am I going to go back to my coach and tell her I can't do this thing? Or am I going to just go ahead and do this thing that was super scary to me? So I was there and I was sitting with another friend, and she knew about my challenge. And so she's like, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. So she pushed me to do it, which I actually really needed at the time. I didn't thank her at the time, but I needed it at the time. And so we sat and we talked and we waited for my coffee to cool down so that I could say to the lady, can you please heat this up again? And I almost was throwing my coffee at her because I was like, this is a hot potato. Just take it away. Just do it. Oh, this is horrible. She did it. She took it away. She brought it back. She gave me a heated one. And then I waited for it to cool down so I could drink it again. But it was a moment that I was like, oh, I feel so awful about myself having her take my coffee back and bring it back. And it really was not a big deal. Like, I could have paid for an extra coffee if I wanted to. It was like $3. It was a $3 coffee. But that night I woke up in the middle of the night sobbing my heart out. And I didn't fully understand what that was until a couple of months later, when I really started to unpack that I had learned that it's not okay to be an inconvenience to people. And it's not okay to ask for what it is you want, because that might inconvenience somebody. And it had been a lesson that I'd had all my whole life, and something that I had continued to ingrain in my psyche, that I can't be an inconvenience to people. And that was the moment that I broke that rule of being an inconvenience to somebody. And it wasn't until then that I realized how much that inconvenience label had taken over my life, and how simple sending the coffee back was the thing that broke it. And how from that moment, I'm not afraid to ask for what it is that I want anymore, because I broke it with the coffee. And that is one of those moments where I say, start to get comfortable with embracing the uncomfortable, because that's where you break the old patterns and the old records, and you get to create something new. You get to create that space of something new that you want, like calling in and asking for the things that you want. So start to embrace the uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is. That's where the change is. If you do the same thing all the time and expect a different result, like, the whole thing is that's a silly notion. Like, you're not going to get something different doing the same thing. You need to do something new, and that is embracing those uncomfortable moments. Lots in there. If you've only just joined, because I see a few people just joined, jump back and watch the replay. You can hear the start of my story and my whole journey of getting to the place that I'm currently at now, where I am embracing myself, loving myself, and seeing the magic that is within. And along with that, being able to share that with a whole bunch of other people, which is exactly where I want to be right now. It wasn't easy. It was challenging. There was definitely darkness in there. There was definitely hard moments, but there was also this amazing beauty as well. So that's it for me today. I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Feel free to leave questions, messages, whatever in the comments. I will definitely come back and answer them and check them out. Bye for now. Have an amazing day.